And we are live. So in this one, I'm going to talk to you guys about what is going on with Bitcoin. Where is it going? What you should be doing, what you should expect, just what's happening overall with the asset class. Now, if you didn't know, Bitcoin has actually hit multiple all-time highs in many different countries. So you got Lebanon, Madagascar, Malaysia, Nigeria, Pakistan, Rwanda. All these countries, Bitcoin has already hit an all-time high. We're just waiting for that all-time high to happen in the US. Bitcoin to USD. Right now, Bitcoin's sitting at 62,000. The all-time high is around 68,000. When is it going to get there? Is it going to get there? Before we kind of move further, if you look at the chart, we got a couple of interesting areas when it comes to Bitcoin. One being that $60,000 level. The reason why $60,000 is interesting is because that is a point where you've got a lot of people who have already bought into Bitcoin. So we should be expecting Bitcoin to get to all-time high levels, and I'm going to get into that a little bit further. But before it gets there, we could very well see those at the 60,000 level get liquidated, get taken out of their position before it moves higher. Almost like what we saw here when we saw Bitcoin move to that $58,000 level before moving up to the peak before that of 63,000. So I do expect those at 60,000 to be liquidated. I've got another level down here at 57,000, and I don't expect Bitcoin to actually drop below that level. I do expect that to be the lowest level that we see in the short term for Bitcoin. But in terms of where we can expect Bitcoin to go, easily back to that all-time high level of 68,000 and beyond. So we're talking 100,000 for Bitcoin this year, and that would be crazy. That'd be a massive jump from where we're at right now of 62,000. And there's so many different reasons for that, because the stars really are just aligning for Bitcoin. And even though we've seen a massive jump in the price of Bitcoin just in the last couple of months, there's still a lot of people, particularly when it comes to the retail investor, that aren't actually looking at Bitcoin. That's why it is something that everybody should be looking at right now. Where it's at 62,000, there is so much room for this to move much higher. But those are the two levels. We got 60,000 and we got 57,000. Don't expect it to drop below 57,000. Now we just entered a new month, 1st of March. The last month, February, we actually saw Bitcoin have its biggest day in terms of dollar value. Biggest month in terms of dollar value. That's a huge accomplishment for Bitcoin. What we're seeing right now, this year, is we're seeing Bitcoin show some firsts in its history. And that's just one of many. The fact that it put up a $20,000 gain in the month of February is absolutely huge. It's never done that before. And if you look in the past, whether it was 2021 or previous bull cycles before then, whenever it put in a record-breaking month, it continued to see momentum. So that's just one of the reasons why moving forward, Bitcoin is looking exceptionally strong. That 20K month in February, in the next few months, we should see another 10K, another 15K month. That's the type of characteristic that we see once we see markets printing massive green candles like that. So that's a big move. That's a very big move for Bitcoin. But there are always going to be bears, and this is one that we're going to talk about. So this is JP Morgan, and JP Morgan are saying that Bitcoin could slide to $42,000 after halving hype subsides. I'm going to put a guess that at least 50% of retail investors in Bitcoin aren't actually aware of what this halving event is. People might own Bitcoin, but they don't know about the halving event. And the halving event is one of the key characteristics of Bitcoin. It's one of the key things that make it such a unique asset class in itself. And very long story short, when it comes to what halving is, essentially the Bitcoin miners that are out there adding blocks to the blockchain, they're rewarded every single time they do that. But every 4 years, that reward halves. So a new block to the blockchain is going to add about 3 Bitcoins, whereas before that it was 6, and then before that it was double that. So because of that, what it means is there is less new supply of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin has a limited supply of 21,000. So because of that, it gives it that scarcity value, right? So more people chasing less. That's one of the things that makes it really, really unique. Anyway, JP Morgan are saying that we could see Bitcoin slide to 42,000. Currently it's sitting at 62,000. So obviously this is a massive drop from where it's at right now. But we know there've been 3 previous Bitcoin halving cycles before this one that is taking place next month in April. So what's interesting is if we actually look at what happened to Bitcoin the previous times we saw where it had a halving event, right? See what happened after, because that will give us an indication into how the market perceives the halving events, how the market reacts after the halving event, and gives us something to work with to anticipate what we should expect to happen to Bitcoin in this next halving cycle, which takes place next month. The halving cycle, the last one was May 2020. And you can see that, yes, we had a run up into the halving cycle, and this halving cycle is this vertical blue line here. So we've had a run up, not as much as the run up that we've seen into this halving cycle, but a run up nevertheless to pretty decent levels. But take a look at what happened after the halving cycle. All right. You can see that market consolidated, traded sideways, just a little bit of volatility for about a month or 2. Nothing spectacular. But then look what happened after the halving cycle. That's the key, right? We saw some profit taking, a little bit of volatility, a little bit of confusion in the markets, and then we saw a massive move up, much, much, much higher. As a matter of fact, Bitcoin easily doubled from that level, easily doubled. Okay, it went into the halving cycle at 10,000, all the way up to 60,000, right? That's a 6x move that we saw in the halving cycle before. Now, let's look at the halving cycle in 2016. Okay, well look, again, big move up into the halving cycle in 2016. What do we get after that? Some volatility, yeah? Profit taking, bit of confusion. As a matter of fact, we saw Bitcoin drop 30%. But once they had sold their position, look at the move after. That is crazy, okay? A move from 500 all the way up to 17,000. And again, look at the halving cycle before then. So this was the first halving cycle, 2012. Again, a little bit of consolidation, sideways movement, right? For about a month. Price didn't do anything. People were probably thinking, what are we doing with our Bitcoin? People selling, whatever. Month after that, massive explosion. So clearly, halving cycles in the past have been a major event when it comes to Bitcoin, and the next halving cycle is around the corner in April. So what should we expect? Well, history often repeats itself. Some profit taking, some consolidated movement before a massive move higher, right? So JP Morgan is saying 42,000. That would be a decline of about 30%. Now we have seen that before. Remember, 2 halving cycles ago, we did see a 30% decline, but we saw a massive move up. Halving cycle is going to be a catalyst that's going to send Bitcoin towards that $100,000 level. Massive event for Bitcoin coming up in a month. But remember, there is about a month or two of consolidating profit taking before we get that move much higher. That's a big event coming up for Bitcoin, that halving cycle. So JP Morgan could just be right on this one. They could just be right if you do get that extreme level of volatility, profit taking, non-believing, but then you are going to explode through this previous high of 68,000. So it does create a lot of opportunity for people to get involved, to get active in Bitcoin. Look at the Bitcoin market cycle. This is super interesting. We have just come out of an accumulation phase, these blue dots. We have just started the bull phase. If you look at the previous cycles, it's been the same story. That accumulation phase is the phase that comes after the bear market, which we've had, when Bitcoin dropped down to that $15,000 level. Then you get the smart money coming in, buying into the market, setting the supply and demands, and then you get the rest of the market joining force to create that bull market move. You can see that's exactly where we're at right now. Coming back up to that previous high that we saw, 2022, 2021, before we get that push much higher towards and through that $100,000 level. So we are very early in this cycle. Even though it looks like Bitcoin is overextended, it looks like we could see a massive crash or correction in the price of Bitcoin. We are very early in the cycle, just starting that bull market move. And the good thing about this move is it's backed by a lot of events, a lot of things falling into place for Bitcoin, right? That halving event is one. The spot ETF is another one. That is absolutely huge. You've now got a lot of institutions buying into Bitcoin. You've got a lot of people who are now have much easier access to Bitcoin through the spot ETFs. And it's just started, right? When it comes to the spot ETF, a lot of people in the world can't even access it. If you're in the US, it's fine. I believe Brazil now, they can access Bitcoin through the spot ETF. But if you're in the UK like myself, you can't access the spot ETF. If you're in other places in the world, you can't access the spot ETF. So there's much more to come from that. And there's a lot more of these large wealth managers, RIAs, to onboard clients. They're not yet in, very early innings. So it's a very interesting time for Bitcoin, most definitely. And the craziest thing about this move here is it's not driven by retail. There's not much retail participation going on in Bitcoin right now, which is crazy. Very different from what we saw back in 2021. We got a lot of retail participation there. We just don't have it right now. We're not yet at the stage where we have FOMO buying. We're not yet at that stage where we have people throwing everything at Bitcoin. We're not there yet. Loads of surveys have been done. If you actually look at this one, even though this is a month old, still relevant. Look how many people believe, this is retail investors by the way, believe that Bitcoin will be under 20,000 by the end of the year. So many people think it'll be between 20 and 40. There's not that belief, there's not that backing from the retail. So all of this that we've seen in Bitcoin, this movement, right, has been driven by institutions. That's a big deal. That's a big deal because it puts a lot of flaws in the price, right? It puts a lot of flaws in the price and gives it a lot more room to extend once you have full market participation, which is what we don't have right now. We don't have full market participation. As a matter of fact, we're very far off full market participation. So once you get Bitcoin moving beyond its all-time high, you get the publicity from that event of Bitcoin passing 68,000, moving into 70,000. You're going to get massive amounts of participation, massive amounts of eyes on Bitcoin. And what that's going to do is it's going to create interest, it's going to fuel demand. That demand is going to fuel further price movement. That's how you're going to get that move from 70,000 up to 80,000 and from 80,000 up to 90,000. So there's a lot of non-believers right now in Bitcoin. But when you understand the drivers, the spot ETF, the halving event, the Federal Reserve with reduction of interest rates in the pipeline, which is a good thing for digital assets, that puts Bitcoin in a very, very, very strong position, right? Very strong position to continue that move much higher. But the retail investors, they're sleeping right now. Definitely sleeping on Bitcoin right now. But check this out. People probably want to know when the best time to buy Bitcoin is. Should you wait for that move? Should you wait for JP Morgan's call for it to drop down to 42,000? Well, check this out. If you had missed the best 10 days in Bitcoin in 2022, you would be down 86%. But if you had been in on the best 10 days, you'd be up 157%. Right? So you can see best 10 days are the purple, the missing those 10 days, so the remaining 355 days, that is the gray. You can see massive disparity between just being in and holding, regardless of when you bought it, right? Versus all the other days. So the key is not to wait for JP Morgan. The key is to get active and hold. I think there's a stat, believe it, had you bought Bitcoin at any point in time and held it for 4 years, I think you'd be up like 200-300%. Some incredible return stats around the asset. So it's looking extremely interesting for Bitcoin. It's a very, very, very interesting time to have your eyes on the asset class. And we will continue to do these live streams and I'll keep you updated. But do drop me down some comments and I'll catch you guys on the next one.